Neil from Messick here to walk you around a New Holland excavator. There's been some interesting things going on here at New Holland Construction lately, and some exciting things actually to share with you about the history of this machine and where this product line is headed. Join me here today to take a look at this new machine.
Messick's, a helping hand with your land.
Before we dive into the machine itself, there's some interesting company stuff that we should clear here first. If you look at the model plate of this, you'll see Excavator E90D, made in Italy. Historically, this industry has had a lot of sourcing relationships in it. It is very, very common for the excavator that you're looking at to be built by a different company. That has usually been the case here with a lot of CNH products, whether it's New Holland Construction or their sister company, Case Construction. Many of these machines have been sourced out of South Korea or Japan from varying suppliers over the years. CNH bought out an Italian company called Sampriana. Sampriana has built excavators for a number of years, but they've largely been in European markets. They haven't really had a presence here in the US before. Part of CNH picking up this company is for this product line, so they now wholly own this company, and these machines are now CNH products. And I can tell you from experience that we at Messick definitely prefer when the vendor owns the factory. We always will get better engineering, better products, better control, better support when things are in-house than when we rely on whisper down the lane to the company that actually manufactured the equipment. So this is a huge change for this product line, and one that we are very happy to see. First up, model numbers, because we can always learn stuff here, right? E is an excavator. 90 is essentially the weight of the machine in metric tons, and D is the series of the unit. So we are leaving the C series now. In New Holland's case, the machines were made in South Korea by Hyundai, and moving into the D series now, the CNH built equipment. 90 for the metric tons of this, we've got to be a little careful with. Most manufacturers use this nomenclature where this tells you the base weight of the machine. Some are aggressive with that number, some are conservative with that number. So it's a little bit hard to sometimes know exactly where that company falls and how big of a machine you are actually looking at. New Holland in this case is being conservative with this number. So you would look here and think this is a 9-ton machine, but when you include this large counterweight that's sitting here on the back of it, it weighs in at almost 10 tons. So this is a capable machine and a notch larger for us here at Messick than what we've offered in the past. As equipment gets bigger, track preferences tend to change. We are very used to selling hundreds of mini excavators a year, and nearly every one of those machines in our area will go out with rubber tracks because they do the least amount of damage to the ground. When you get into bigger machines like this, though, those considerations start to change, and you often want something a little bit more durable. So a rubber track is still available for this machine, and it's going to be your least expensive option. Traditional steel tracks are available, but most people now are preferring these hybrid tracks. This is where the belting and everything around the inside of the track is steel, and these individual rubber pads are bolted onto that track in order to give you kind of that lighter touch on the surfaces that you're driving across, but also some durability options. If you mess up one of these pads, they just unbolt and can be replaced easily again, kind of giving this track a really long and durable life. If we flip up the side shields here of the machine and take a look on the inside, you'll find a 74 horsepower Yanmar engine and all the service stuff here on the outside easy to get to, right? You expect this from any modern equipment now, especially from something this size. It's a little easier to get around because you have more space in here than you do in a compact machine. One thing in here though that I thought was cool and unique is that there's actually a fuel pump in here. And when I say fuel pump, I mean a fuel pump to pump fuel into the fuel tank. You can actually come over with a 5-gallon bucket of diesel fuel, throw a drip hose down into the bottom of it, and pump the fuel from that bucket up into the machine. So if you're running this in a challenging environment, off-road somewhere you don't have easy access to fuel, you can very easily pump it from a bucket or a can right up into the unit. So I'm gonna give you the insider story here, because I'll tell you things others won't. One of the funny stories that I heard about this machine came from somebody at CNH when they were introducing this at a trade show. If you ever gone to a trade show before, there's a lot of times when you go into these facilities that you have to drain the fuel from a machine before you can pull it in. It's fire hazard related stuff, right? And as they were leaving that show, on the way out, the machine ran out of fuel in the middle of the aisle, backing up all the other exhibitors who were trying to get out. And their solution for getting it running again was this fuel pump. And I think this is a relatable story to a lot of us in a lot of ways. That's why I'm telling it. All they had to do here was pull the hose right out of the back of the machine, and they actually dropped it into the diesel tank of another piece of equipment right beside them as they were trying to exit, flipped the switch on, pumped a little bit of fuel out of that unit in order to get themselves out the door. So a funny story to see how like the factory people have actually put this thing to work. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, man, we have all been there once or twice before. As we work our way out the boom here, you'll see the hydraulics that this machine is fitted with. Two auxiliaries on a machine of this size are kind of expected. You have your lines on either side of the boom. You have a case drain line out here, standard equipment, and this machine can also be fitted with an additional third hydraulic option that I think is kind of cool and unique. A dedicated gear pump can go on this for a higher flow option in order to run attachments like mulchers out on the end of this unit. That gives you a dedicated circuit so that mulcher maintains its power while you're moving the rest of your boom around. So as I'm told, this is an uncommon feature on a machine of this size. It makes it a beast in mulching applications. Now the hydraulic functions that we have back there on the boom are not robbed by the quick coupler. When we're dealing with smaller machines and we go to try to fit a hydraulic quick coupler, oftentimes we end up needing one of those hydraulic functions for the coupler. But in a machine of this class, a hydraulic pin grabber out here is kind of expected, and so there is a dedicated additional line coming out here for the coupler. You're gonna notice out here that this is a Geith coupler. They're a well-known name in the industry, and they're the OEM picking up the buckets and couplers and thumbs and stuff that are gonna go onto the end of this unit. The blade here that I'm sitting on is a typical straight blade. There's angle and six-way blade options that can go on here as well. But there's a cool feature up here in the cab that plays into this blade here that I think is worth talking about. The control sticks here in this unit are electronic over hydraulic control sticks. And the one feature that you could pick up with EH sticks is the ability to be able to reprogram what they do. There's an option in here where you can flip the drive of the machine over from your two typical sticks out in front of you over to a left-hand EH stick. So you can then use this stick in order to drive the unit. And that makes this a really interesting grading machine, particularly with something like a six-way blade, enabling you to use it a little bit more like a dozer and drive with your hand rather than with the sticks out in front of you. So that's a cool combination of features that I haven't seen around here before. We seem to see reversing fans becoming an option on more and more equipment, and this one is equipped with one. You'll notice here the hydraulic motor that drives the fan here that's on the radiator and the little valve assembly that's down here below it. This is a reversing fan. So you can set up an interval up here in the monitor that on an interval, say 60 to 90 minutes or so, this thing is gonna kick and run in reverse in order to blow the dust off the radiator. So that gives you just a little bit added assurance that in dusty conditions, your radiator is gonna continue to run cool without you having to regularly get out here and blow the thing out. One thing that's definitely different in this machine compared to many of the mini excavators that we sell is the height here inside the cab. I've got a ton of space here above my head. Most of the time with these small machines, they're built fairly low because they're putting them overseas and driving them into a shipping container, right? This though starts to get too large for that, and so you get this added benefit of all of this height up here. So when I take my front window and swing it up above my head, excavator style like you're used to, I got plenty of room for that, but also still room up in the top for storage locations for the lower panel yet as well. So you can remove all of the front glass and the window if you're talking to somebody or looking down into a ditch and have room for all of these pieces. One thing that makes this machine unique in New Holland Construction's line is the boom mounting option. In this case, this one has the boom mounted out front with the left-right pivot on it. You can also get it mounted back here in the middle of the machine. That's going to change the geometry and digging characteristics of this machine a little bit, but it does save a little bit of expense and less mountings and less hydraulics out here. When you look out the right-hand side of the machine here, you'll see the covers and stuff under here that cover up that area that the boom is going to mount. So obvious that it can go out here. That's the reason why the middle of this is built the way that it is. One thing I didn't pick up on when going through the product literature was how much tail this machine has. If we look here at the back of the machine with the counterweight off, you're going to notice that it's basically a zero tail swing machine. The house essentially sits inside the tracks. With this large counterweight added on the back though, it does come beyond a little bit, only by a couple of inches, so we would call it a tight tail swing machine. So because of the way this is set up, this is a unit that's probably best intended for municipal rental, landscape, home building types of things where you're concerned about swinging a machine around and potentially hitting something that could be behind it. The hydraulic system in this machine is a fairly advanced one that gives you some interesting control over the feel and the function of your boom. By going through and changing the way that the hydraulic flows and pressures are biased, you can have more power in different functions here. So say you have an application that really calls for a ton of bucket breakout. You can go through the monitor here and flip from a standard mode into a power mode that's going to bias the hydraulics that direction. Now that might change the feel of some of the smoothness of the boom as it comes in and out. The standard option's very smooth. You can multifunction and stay level very, very easily. But the power mode is going to push more of those hydraulics down into the bucket in order to give you that breakout force that you might need. An interesting comment that I heard was that if you go into the user-defined mode, you can bias that even further than what the power mode is going to in the monitor. And that will actually allow this machine to operate beyond what it says on the specification sheet to some degree. So that's interesting to me. It may not have the best feel at that point, but they're giving the machine specifications on some kind of balanced application there, right? That it's going to perform while still having an appropriate feel. First and foremost, I am not an operator. Huge respect for those of you that are. You develop skills over the years that I will never have. I did though grab one of our sales guys here who was an operator for 16 years before joining the sales side of the business. He was quite pleased by the feel that the machine had. Noticing some of those differences here when we go between the standard power mode, individual mode, he very quickly was able to pick up on the differences in the way that that boom behaved. And I thought that was really interesting to see that, like, that's not just a marketing feature. It really does impact the performance and function of the machines. If I give two criticisms I've got here inside the machine, it is obvious that this is not a brand new design product, right? I said before, Cipriana already had this machine on the market in other parts of the world, and it is just being brought here to the US. And for that reason, it doesn't feel like a new design. Like when we've been in and out of some other New Holland equipment here lately, you're gonna notice that the screen and the monitor that's in this is not the family monitor that's used in the other New Holland equipment. It feels a little bit older, a little bit more aged. Also here, when I look around the machine, one pet peeve that I have personally is when too much stuff is put in that monitor. I like buttons. And the one thing that they put in there that drives me a little nuts is the air conditioning controls are on the monitor. Now it's not touch screen. You can make the selections with the jog dial down here to move around it. It's not a complicated monitor. There's not a whole lot of other stuff in there, but the air conditioning is. So if you want to turn the fan up and down, you got to go in here and do it with the dials. Now it's like your car. You can set automatic modes and set your desired temperature and it will take care of itself. Probably not a big deal, but I always point this out is how are the monitors utilized in this equipment? Is it done well or is it overdone? And I would say that one function for me personally is overdone. Beyond that, I like most of the rest of what I see here. It has a backup camera on it. As soon as you pull into reverse, the backup pops right up on the screen so you can see if there's anything behind you. It gives you all the diagnostic stuff that you would expect on there. By clicking down into it, you can go through and set up different attachment options to dial in your flows for different things that you might put out there on the end of the boom. You've got some settings and stuff for user preferences on how the machine behaves. But by and large, you're not going into the monitor on a regular basis in order to make kind of call them necessary adjustments, right? It's a fair balance, but the air conditioning controls are in there, so know that. Working around my right-hand console over here, if you've run an excavator before, nothing here is going to be too much of a surprise. Your throttle is a dial here that's right above the key. You just turn that up or down. There is an auto idle option on here too that revs it back down if you stop moving it. Your blade is the lever here right in front of it, and your 2-speed travel is triggers on the front of that. Again, very expected as you get in and out of other machines. The jog dial here and the couple of buttons are nice big rubberized buttons, easy to push at with dirty fingers. And again, like I said, a handful of things in here as far as climate control goes, but for the most part, you're only getting in there if you're making changes to the attachment that you have out on the boom. Beyond that, here you have controls for all of your work lights. There's courtesy work lights on here too. If you get off the machine, it'll leave the lights on for a couple of minutes for you to get away from it so you can illuminate your working area in the dark. And controls for windshield wipers and stuff. If you need to go and you're gonna remove the bucket off of your hydraulic coupler, there's a 2-function thing for that to make sure you don't bump it by accident. So that's done with a key switch over here on the side, and then one of these buttons in order to release your bucket from the quick coupler. So as I work through the controls in here, again, I'm not in these things every day, but with 5 minutes of poking around in here, I felt pretty confident in what I was doing. Quick impression here while we're driving around. Feels to me quick. I don't know how this compares to the rest of the industry in this weight class, but to me, excavators are slow, especially driving around here. It's a long way in this lot to get from one side to the other. This is definitely one of the faster machines that I've driven as far as its ground speed goes. I'm quick to acknowledge that when you're looking for a piece of equipment like this, Messick's and maybe even New Holland Construction might not be the very first place that you think of, right? There's a lot of really established companies out there for this kind of equipment today. But companies like ourselves that have traditionally been ag equipment dealers might actually provide a really high level of service that you might be really happy with. When it comes to, say, cows that need to be milked, crops that need to come in, we're really used to quick response times, parts on the shelf. We know what uptime looks like. And as the years have gone by and companies like ourselves that used to be really thought of primarily as farm equipment companies have gotten more established in light construction, you're gonna find that we can provide a really high level of service for this kind of equipment and do it at prices you're gonna be really surprised by. The labor rates and stuff that we expect from our shops over here are much, much less than what you're going to find from the traditional heavy construction companies. So by bringing companies like New Holland Construction and partnering with dealers like Messick's, you're gonna find a really great value for your dollar when it comes to your construction equipment need. So that's a little bit on New Holland's new E90 excavator. Super cool to see this machine show up here. Also really pleased to see the investment that this company is making into this manufacturing facility and production line. This is the kind of investment in products that we like to see that helps us build a business over the long term together with you. So shopping for an excavator like this and we can help, or if you have parts and service needs for a machine you've already got, give us a call at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or online at messicks.com. Should have here driving back and forth. This thing's shaking the daylights out of my GoPro. Can of 5 gallons. Okay.